Hi everyone! In the very first episode of ClariChamber, we are going to talk about one of the most marvelous and captivating chamber pieces that showcases the clarinet's singing quality, Shepherd on the Rock by Franz Schubert. He was a true champion of the romantic German songs, Lieder, which are mostly performed by a solo voice and piano. In Shepherd on the Rock, Schubert extends the traditional form of Lied and pairs solo voice and piano with the clarinet's human-like sound and range, almost as if it was an aria for two voices. However, there is one thing we, clarinet players, cannot do on our instrument. We are not able to say and pronounce actual words that singers are capable of doing. However, the audience already has an idea about what the meaning behind the clarinet's expressive lines is when it repeats the singer's material in a more reserved way as an echo at the end of the phrases. The clarinet adds beauty, delicacy, and sweetness, and it also lightens the dramatic chords and moments throughout the piece. After the short piano introduction, the clarinet brings in the main theme of the first section in this piece. The very first note of the clarinet is as if it was coming from nowhere with the pianissimo, and Schubert even puts a crescendo decrescendo on that note. He really knows what he is doing, since there is nothing else happening. It is rest for the piano and the singer, so the clarinet can show its very unique ability, which is to start from nothing and disappear into nothing without having to worry about being overpowered by the others. And there is even a fermata that we can really take advantage of while making the dynamic change as smooth and beautiful as possible. This section, even though it is a clarinet solo, sounds more natural if we rely on the direction of the line and note that will help us with the phrasing as opposed to exaggerating and trying to play with too much rubato. It can give away too much too soon from the piece. Just one thing about the rhythm: try to distinguish the 16th notes of the dotted 8th and 16th note rhythms. Sometimes it can fall together with the piano's triplets, which was not Schubert's intention. Just make sure the rhythm is correct, and even though it is a 16th note only, it should not sound hurried or neglected. Since this piece is not about virtuosity in the clarinet part, except for the final coda, the rhythm should feel relaxed in general. We should think about a softer and more delicate feeling in the muscles, in the arms and fingers when changing notes. Another beautiful musical moment happens when the clarinet takes over the lead in measure 81, quickly builds up, and then drops suddenly 2 measures later. Being aware of the swift 16th notes and then the more intimate and elegant G sharp in measure 83 will help you with making that contrast, not only dynamic-wise, but also in terms of characteristics. One of my favorite moments can be found in measure 86 when the clarinet repeats E for several bars. The only thing that changes is the rhythm. There is almost no dynamic indication in this section, so we need to be more creative here. Instead of playing it straight through, it can help us if we look at the chord changes again in the piano in measure 88. We can delay the repeated E's in the previous measure and do a slight crescendo, and then delicately land on the next measure. In measure 120 and 121, just like in measure 61 and 62, make sure to line up with the piano and do not get confused by the repetitive triplets in the piano. Right before the dark, gleeful middle section starts, the transition plays a crucial part in making the contrast between the first and second part of the piece. The triplets in the piano become eighth notes, the general tempo slows down, which also separates this section from the previous one. If we elongate the G sharp in measure 127 and make sure that we have enough space to make the decrescendo in the previous measure so that the downbeat becomes part of it, then the downbeat will not stick out. It is certainly a challenge to play something flawlessly and smoothly without making it sound planned, and of course there is the expectation of landing together on the downbeat of measure 127. But how do you do that without cueing the pianist? That could result in sounding artificial. I would say the answer is having complete trust in your colleagues. Needless to say that it takes practice to get to a point when the start of the second section is almost unnoticeable, but once it is achieved, it will feel truly rewarding musically. There is a repeated D from measure 162 through 164 under one slur, which reminds me of a sigh and its echo expressing pain, grief, and loneliness. Each of these three notes has a different weight, and even though in the music they have the same accent, when it is played, each of them should be less than the previous one, both in dynamics and accent-wise. In measure 183, instead of a G minor chord, Schubert surprises us with a G major chord. We hear a B natural instead of a B flat as the singer mentions the word heaven. Schubert was really a genius of putting the meaning of the text into musical expressions. If we play each quarter note in measure 182 more tenuto than the previous one, and then gently arrive on the downbeat of measure 183, we can let the music breathe without interrupting the natural flow of this change. We are aiming for an effortless arrival in measure 183, so when the singer says the word heaven, there is also different musical material that describes the change in scenery and atmosphere without words. Throughout the piece, we can notice that there are not a lot of dynamic markings in general, and especially when we have very long slurred notes to play, we have to be very creative and come up with different musical ideas. Starting in measure 207, there is a very long phrase with slurred, mostly dotted half notes, while the piano has the moving eighth notes. Since we do not vibrate on the clarinet, or if we do, it is not as much as the other woodwind instruments do, so we need to find other ways to keep the phrase alive. We can experiment with dynamics and time while shaping the phrase. We can also play with the trills, speeding up or slowing down. Before the fast, playful and youthful last section, the clarinet is more about imitating and singing through the long phrases, just like the singer does. However, towards the end of the piece, we can finally showcase our virtuosity as well by playing a surprising, vivid and energetic coda after measure 336. Sometimes singers take time in that measure, as if there was a fermata that also helps create a dramatic build-up before the grandioso ending. This is something that we can experiment with during rehearsals. Just make sure you all are on the same page and that you pay attention to the last 8 notes of measure 336 in the voice, so you know when to start the next bar with the piano. In addition, in the coda, there are no slurs on the top of the 16th notes in the clarinet, but please feel free to add some based on your preference. Playing this entire section with staccatos only could give an agitated and heavy feeling to the ending, and we want to aim for a light and flawless playing so that the audience could not wait until the end to start clapping. This is our time to shine, so do not hold yourself back. Thanks for watching ClariChamber today. I hope you find this video helpful to you and that it will give you some ideas as you work on this marvelous and fascinating piece by Schubert. Keep practicing, have fun, see you next time.